Silence is consent. You've heard that phrase a million times, right? It just kind of feels true. If someone doesn't object, they must be okay with it. But what happens when that common saying gets dragged into the real world, into a court of law? Well, that's what we're here to figure out.
Because think about it. When the stakes are real, we're talking business deals, property lines, or even an encounter with the police, does your silence actually mean yes? We're about to dive in, and you're going to find that the answer is way more complicated and honestly, way more interesting than you'd think.
So, here's our game plan. We'll start with the unwritten law and get to the ancient roots of this whole idea. Then we're going to look at the surprising moments when your silence really can lock you into an agreement. From there, we'll flip it and look at your powerful right to be silent. And finally, we'll bring it all together for the final nuanced verdict.
Okay, so first things first. Where in the world did we get this idea that not saying anything means, well, anything? To find out, we've got to go back, way back, to a time before everything was written down in law books.
The fancy Latin term for it is Lex Non Scripta, which literally just means unwritten law. You can think of it as law that kind of grows organically out of how people behave. Customs, traditions, and court decisions that just get passed down. It's in this old foundational soil that the idea of silence having real legal weight first started to grow.
And you can see how that works right here. It all starts when one person is silent. The law can look at that and say, okay, no objection here. That lack of an objection then starts to look a lot like an agreement, and boom. In just the right situation, that implied agreement becomes legally binding. It seems simple, but as you're about to see, the secret sauce is always the context.
So, how does this ancient principle actually show up today? Well, it's not some dusty old theory, that's for sure. It has very real impacts, especially in the world of business and commerce. So let's get specific. Let's look at the times when the law decides your silence is basically you shouting yes.
First up is something called implied acceptance, and it happens all the time in contract law.
So picture this. You've got a supplier. Every single month, they send you a shipment of goods, and every month you accept it and you pay the bill. You've never signed a big formal contract, but you've established a clear pattern of behavior. So if that next monthly shipment arrives and you just say nothing, well, the law says your silence is acceptance. Your own past actions have given your silence a specific meaning.
Okay, now for a more dramatic example. This one comes from a legal idea called estoppel by acquiescence. That sounds complicated, but the core idea is pretty simple. It means you can lose your right to complain about something because you just stood by and let it happen.
Okay, so imagine your neighbor starts building a brand new fence. And you can see it plain as day. It's a foot over the line onto your property. You watch them buy the lumber, you watch them dig the holes, you watch the whole thing go up, and you don't say a single word. Well, after all that, you can't just suddenly turn around and sue them for trespassing. A court is probably going to say that by silently watching them spend all that time and money, you gave up your right to object. You acquiesced.
And you see this principle pop up in other kind of surprising places too. Like in maritime law, if a rescue crew starts saving your sinking ship, your silence is basically taken as a yes, please to their help. The common thread in all these examples, a very specific context or a history between people, is what gives silence its incredible power.
Okay, so up until now, we've seen how silence can be used like a sword against you. But now, we're going to flip the entire script. Let's talk about when your silence is your shield, a fundamental right that's baked into the fabric of the law.
And here it is, the crucial divide. The rules we just talked about for business and property, they are the complete and total opposite of the rules in criminal and constitutional law. In that world, the default setting is flipped on its head. Your silence is absolutely not consent. It is a protected right.
And there's a really good reason for this. The courts have set an incredibly high bar for giving up one of your constitutional rights. To do it, your waiver has to be knowing and voluntary. That means you have to be fully aware and you have to actively say yes. Just staying quiet, it doesn't even come close to clearing that bar, not even a little.
So what does this actually mean for you in your life? It means that if you're ever in a police interrogation, you have the right to remain silent. If an officer asks to search your car without a warrant, just staying quiet is not giving them permission. And if a total stranger sends you a business proposal out of the blue, you can ignore it without worrying that you've just entered into a contract. In these critical moments, your silence is your protection.
All right, so we've got these two very different legal worlds with two completely different answers. In one, silence can bind you. In the other, it protects you. So how do we square this? How do we put it all together? Well, it all comes down to one single powerful word: context.
You know, when you lay it all out like this, the pattern becomes crystal clear. Can silence be consent? In contract law, the answer is sometimes. In cases of estoppel, it's often. But in criminal procedure, it's a hard no. The meaning of silence is never set in stone. It changes completely based on which legal arena you're standing in.
So, it's time to deliver the final verdict on that old saying, silence is consent. Is it legally true? The answer is no. It's a myth. There is no universal rule, and frankly, believing there is one can be a really dangerous oversimplification of how the law actually works.
The real takeaway here, the thing you absolutely need to remember, is this. The power and meaning of your silence always comes down to three things: the context you're in, your past conduct, and any prior relationship you have with the other person. Those are the three keys that determine whether your silence means yes, no, or nothing at all.
So you see, this isn't just about knowing some obscure legal facts. It's about knowing when to use your voice and when to use your silence. The rules are complex, the stakes can be incredibly high. But now that you know how the game is played, when will you choose to speak up?